G.K. Chesterton was a heretic. Despite this, many people consider him to be a strong Catholic intellectual. I'm going to review The Everlasting Man, one of his most famous books, and highlight its heresies. Chesterton speaks highly of Buddhism in his book, The Everlasting Man. On page 49, he calls Buddhism great. Confucianism and Buddhism are great things, but it is not true to call them churches, just as the French and English are great peoples, but it is nonsense to call them nomads. The Everlasting Man, page 49. Great can mean historically or numerically significant, but as we look at the other quotes, we see that he is praising Buddhism. He actually refers to Buddha as, quote, the great Lord. The next great example I shall take of the princely sage is Gautama, the great Lord Buddha. The Everlasting Man, page 80. One can try to claim that he isn't praising the ideas of Buddhism, and it's only saying that Buddha and Buddhism are influential, but this claim doesn't hold up, because Chesterton then calls Buddha a, quote, genius. Now, when the genius of Buddha arose to deal with this matter, this sort of cosmic sentiment was already common to almost everything in the East. The Everlasting Man, page 81. Chesterton again speaks highly of Buddhism on page 152. We have most of us known some masters of the higher wisdom, some pilgrims upon the path to power, some Eastern esoteric saints and seers, who had really nothing to do with ethics. The Everlasting Man, page 152. Chesterton is making the point that Eastern mysticism doesn't have ethics, but while making this point, he calls these pagan, quote, mystics, quote, saints, and, quote, masters of the higher wisdom. Not only does Chesterton praise pagan Buddhism, but he also writes a statement praising pagan Europe. The limits that paganism had reached in Europe were the limits of human existence. At its best, it had only reached the same limits anywhere else. The Everlasting Man, page 101. Since Chesterton praises paganism, it's no surprise that he refers to Protestants as Christians and believers. There are loyalties of other kinds, but not what men in the West mean by being a believer, by trying to be a Christian, by being a good Protestant or a practicing Catholic. The Everlasting Man, page 152. Chesterton refers to Protestants as Christians. Real Catholics know that Protestants are not Christians. Also, he seems to have a high regard for Freemasonry. We hail a certain human Freemasonry wherever we see it, in savages, in foreigners, or in historical characters. For instance, all we can infer from primitive legend, and all we know of barbaric life, supports a certain moral and even mystical idea, of which the commonest symbol is clothes. The Everlasting Man, page 25. Does that quote mean he's a Freemason? I don't know, but no Catholic is allowed to speak like that about Freemasonry. The Catholic Church has clearly condemned Freemasonry. Pope Leo XIII, October 15, 1890. It is needless now to put the Masonic sects upon their trial. They are already judged. Their ends, their means, their doctrines, and their action are all known with indisputable certainty. Possessed by the spirit of Satan, whose instrument they are, they burn like him with a deadly and implacable hatred of Jesus Christ and his work, and they endeavor by every means to overthrow and fetter it. G.K. Chesterton was a heretic. He praised Buddhism and called Protestants believers. He didn't realize that other religions were made by the devil to deceive humanity and send people to hell.